Passover starts tonight in the Meadmaker household, and I just have to clear all the chametz out of the house. Welcome to Ask the Meadmaker, where I, Ricky the Meadmaker, answer your questions about mead making, mead drinking, mead brewing, and really any question you're willing to send to me. Our first question this week comes from Anton, who has some buckwheat honey and wants to know if he can ferment it straight or if he needs to blend it with wildflower, and if he needs to blend it, what ratio? The answer is, it's up to you, but straight buckwheat can be a little bitter, almost burnt tasting, so a lot of people use it for flavor, and 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 ratio should be good. Our next question comes from Laughing Dragon Meadery, and you know when I say like mead making, mead brewing, and really any question, this one is right on that line because they learned about a trick where you put a banana into your mead for mouthfeel, but you don't taste the banana. The question is not, is this a good practice? The question is about disclosure. Do you tell people that there's banana in your mead and have them try to pick out that flavor, or tell them there's banana in the mead and don't have them pick out the flavor by telling them not to, or do you not tell them so they're not focused on it? And the answer is, somewhere in here we're having an ethical discussion because some people are allergic to bananas. Katie accidentally ran an experiment. She made a batch of mead with distilled water before looking and seeing that it was distilled water and remembering she's not supposed to. So what she immediately did was started a second batch with not distilled water, and sure enough, the second batch is bubbling much more vigorously. Now this is like 5 months ago, so I don't know how it all sugared out, as they say, but she added Fermate K to both, and still after 7 days, the fermentation rate of the second batch, the one with not distilled water, was much faster. 48 bubbles a minute versus 24. Thank you for counting, making this a real experiment. And it finished first. She wants to know, is the first batch salvageable? Now, the thing is, a slow fermentation is not necessarily a bad fermentation. You know if it's a good mead because it tastes good. I've talked about that before. So, if you kept both batches, why don't you taste them and tell us which was better? John Rue wants to know if you can use a SodaStream to carbonate mead, and the answer is not according to the manufacturer's instructions. Wink. Our last question this week comes from Bruno, who wants to know how commercial meaderies sanitize or sterilize their mead before fermentation. The 3 things he thought of were ultrafiltration, pasteurization, and chemicals. The answer is, there's one other option, which is where you use ozonation, where you push ozone through the batch to kill the wild yeast. I don't recommend doing that at home because ozone is toxic. So, some meaderies do not sanitize or sterilize their wort. We actually have a couple batches where we don't. And some pick all 3 options. We don't recommend ultrafiltration, however, because it removes a lot of the best flavors from the honey. Otherwise, it's up to you. That's our last question this week. Keep sending your questions and I'll get to them as soon as possible. Cheers.